My name is Morgan Reed, 34 years old, and I built Everest Holdings in secret after my father refused to let me join our family furniture business. I returned home for Thanksgiving hoping to repair our relationship after 5 years apart. Instead, my dad announced they were selling the company, leaving nothing for the family. When he proudly revealed Everest Holdings as the buyer paying $50 million, I could not help but smile. The room went completely silent when I said, "Dad, I am Everest Holdings." If you are watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear how I turned my rejection into the ultimate redemption story. I grew up in a family deeply rooted in the luxury furniture business. Reed Artisan Furnishings was founded by my grandfather Harold Reed in a small workshop in Vermont over 60 years ago. What started as a one-man operation, crafting custom tables and chairs, eventually grew into a respected name known for exceptional craftsmanship and timeless designs. Our furniture graced the homes of celebrities, politicians, and even a few pieces stood proudly in the White House. My father, Walter Reed, took over the business when my grandfather became too ill to continue working. At 65, my father is what most would call old school in every possible way. Tall with silver hair and perpetually furrowed brows, he ran the company with an iron fist and unwavering dedication to tradition. Innovation was not something he embraced easily. His management style was rigid, autocratic, and resistant to change. He believed business should be conducted the way it always had been, with handshakes, paper contracts, and face-to-face meetings. My mother, Elaine Reed, stood in stark contrast to my father. At 63, she remained beautiful but subdued, having spent decades in my father's shadow. Though intelligent and intuitive, she rarely voiced her opinions in family matters, especially regarding the business. Her role was clearly defined in my father's eyes: support him, manage the household, and stay out of business affairs. She hosted dinner parties for clients, attended charity events, and maintained the perfect image of a successful businessman's wife. Behind closed doors, I sometimes caught glimpses of her frustration, but she never openly challenged my father. My older brother, Travis, 38, was the golden child in my father's eyes. Groomed from childhood to eventually take over the company, Travis enjoyed privileges and opportunities I never received. He attended the best schools, was given senior positions within the company straight out of college, and had my father's unwavering support. The problem was that Travis had absolutely no passion for the furniture business. He had no eye for design, no understanding of craftsmanship, and worst of all, no real business acumen. What he did have was charm, good looks, and an ability to coast through life on the Reed family name. Then there was my sister Danielle, 36, who showed even less interest in the actual business than Travis. Beautiful and socially connected, Danielle viewed the family company as nothing more than a source of income to fund her lavish lifestyle. She appeared in society pages, dated wealthy men, and occasionally showed up at company events looking immaculate but contributing nothing of substance. The furniture business was beneath her interests, though she never hesitated to boast about our family legacy when it served her social climbing ambitions. And then there was me, the youngest, always fascinated by every aspect of our family business. From the age of 6, I would spend hours in the workshop watching our master craftsmen transform raw wood into beautiful pieces of art. I loved the smell of freshly cut oak, the precision of the joinery work, and the meticulous attention to detail in every piece we created. By 12, I could identify dozens of wood species by sight and touch. By 16, I was sketching my own furniture designs that the craftsmen would occasionally humor me by discussing. My grandfather noticed my interest and encouraged it. "You have the eye, Morgan," he would say, his aged hands guiding mine over a piece of walnut. "You can feel the soul of the wood." Those workshop days with him were precious, the only times I truly felt valued for my passion rather than dismissed for my gender. He taught me that furniture was not just functional but told stories, created atmospheres, and became part of families' lives for generations. His lessons went far beyond craftsmanship, though he never lived to see me implement them. When I graduated high school, I was determined to formally study business and design to prepare myself for eventually joining the family company. I worked twice as hard as my classmates to secure a spot at Harvard, graduating with dual degrees in business management and industrial design. Unlike Travis, who barely scraped through a business degree at a less prestigious university, I graduated with honors, winning several innovation awards for my furniture concepts that blended traditional craftsmanship with modern sustainability practices. Throughout college, I developed a vision for how Reed Artisan Furnishings could evolve. The market was changing, with younger generations seeking sustainable, multifunctional pieces with stories behind them. I saw a clear path to honor our traditional craftsmanship while appealing to this emerging market. I created detailed business plans, conducted market research, and developed prototypes during summer breaks. Every holiday, I tried sharing my ideas with my father, only to be politely dismissed or outright ignored. The business has survived 60 years without these modern notions, he would say, barely glancing at my carefully prepared presentations. We make furniture the way furniture should be made. The painful truth was that while my father claimed to value tradition, what he really valued was control, and in his world, the furniture business was a man's domain. I heard him tell business associates more than once that the furniture business requires a firm hand and clear head, with a pointed look in my direction that made his meaning clear. Women might choose the furniture for their homes, but men built the business. My mother watched these interactions with sympathetic eyes, but never intervened. Once, after a particularly dismissive response from my father to my suggestion about expanding our online presence, she found me crying in my childhood bedroom. "Your father means well," she said, sitting beside me. "He just cannot see beyond what he knows." Her words were meant to comfort, but they only highlighted how trapped we both were by his narrow vision. Despite these challenges, my love for the family business never wavered. I saw its potential and longed to be part of its future. What I did not realize then was that to save what I loved, I would first have to leave it behind entirely. The defining moment came 5 years ago, shortly after I completed my MBA with a specialization in sustainable business practices. I returned home bursting with excitement and armed with a comprehensive 30-page business plan. After years of education and preparation, I felt ready to make my case for joining the family business in a meaningful capacity. I requested a formal family meeting, something we typically reserved for major decisions. My father agreed, perhaps humoring what he considered my youthful enthusiasm. On a crisp autumn evening, our family gathered in the formal dining room that doubled as our conference room for business discussions. My father sat at the head of the table, my mother to his right, Travis and Danielle across from me. I had spent weeks preparing my presentation, complete with market analysis, competitive positioning, financial projections, and design concepts. My plan outlined a 5-year strategy to expand Reed Artisan Furnishings into the growing sustainable luxury market while honoring our traditional craftsmanship. I proposed launching a new line targeting affluent millennials who valued environmental responsibility along with quality and heritage. The numbers were solid, showing potential revenue growth of 30% within 3 years. For nearly an hour, I walked my family through every detail, answering questions, explaining concepts, and painting a vision of a revitalized family business ready to thrive in a changing market. When I finished, there was a moment of silence. I remember feeling hopeful, as my father leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "This is all very impressive, Morgan," he began, and my heart lifted momentarily. "You have clearly put considerable thought into this. But furniture making is not about market trends and flashy presentations. It is about consistency, tradition, and knowledge passed down through generations of men who understand this business." My stomach dropped as he continued. "The truth is, this business requires certain qualities that women simply do not possess. The workshop respect would be impossible to maintain with a woman trying to lead. The business negotiations require a firmness that is fundamentally masculine. While your academic achievements are commendable, they do not translate to the real world of our industry." I sat there stunned as he delivered his verdict. "Travis will continue as the heir to this company. You are welcome to work in the showroom, or perhaps handle some of the decorative aspects, but the core business decisions and leadership will remain where they belong." Travis smirked across the table. "Do not take it personally, sis. Some things just require a man's touch." Danielle nodded in agreement. "Morgan, you always were trying too hard. Why not focus on starting a family instead? That business degree could help you manage a household budget at least." Their laughter felt like physical blows. but nothing hurt more than watching my mother's silent acquiescence as she stared down at her folded hands, unwilling or unable to defend me. I gathered my materials with shaking hands. "You are making a mistake," I said quietly. "This company needs to evolve, or it will not survive another generation." "We have survived just fine without your modern ideas," my father replied dismissively. "This discussion is closed." I left the house that night with tears streaming down my face, but also with a resolve hardening inside me. The rejection was not just professional, but deeply personal, a fundamental dismissal of my worth based solely on my gender. Everything I had worked for, every dream I had nurtured, was deemed irrelevant because I was a woman in what my father considered a man's world. 2 days later, I packed my belongings and moved to New York City. I had job offers from several prestigious firms thanks to my academic record, but I chose an entry-level position at a furniture design startup. The pay was minimal, the hours long, but the environment was everything. Reed Artisan Furnishings was not innovative, inclusive, and forward-thinking. For months, I lived in a tiny apartment in Brooklyn, taking the subway at dawn and returning after midnight, working harder than I ever had before. I learned every aspect of the modern furniture business from the ground up, not as the boss's daughter, but as the newest employee with everything to prove. I designed during lunch breaks, networked at industry events in the evenings, and spent weekends visiting workshops and factories to understand modern production techniques. 6 months into my new life, I met Jessica Hayes at an industry conference. A self-made furniture magnate who had built her empire from nothing, Jessica took an interest in me after seeing some of my design concepts. Over coffee that turned into dinner, I shared my background, my vision, and my determination to succeed on my own terms. "Your father did you a favor," she said after hearing my story. "He freed you to build something authentic to your vision, instead of fighting to change his." Jessica became my mentor, introducing me to key industry figures, advising me on business strategies, and eventually becoming the first investor when I decided to launch my own company. With her seed funding combined with my savings and a small bank loan, Everest Holdings was born. I chose the name Everest for its symbolism of the highest peak, the ultimate achievement, and the tremendous challenge it represented. Holdings, rather than furniture, to disguise my true intentions in the beginning. I established a corporate structure that concealed my identity as founder and CEO, using lawyers and representatives for most dealings. In the furniture industry, being young and female still presented unnecessary obstacles, and I wanted my work to speak for itself before my identity became known. The early days were brutally difficult. I worked 18-hour days, slept on a futon in my office to save rent money, and poured every penny back into the business. There were moments of paralyzing doubt, nights spent questioning whether my father had been right all along. But each morning I would remind myself of the dismissive laughter, the closed opportunities, and find the strength to continue. Looking back now, I recognize those years of struggle were necessary, forging me into the businesswoman I needed to become. Each rejection from a potential client or investor taught me resilience. Each manufacturing problem solved gave me confidence. Each small success validated my vision. I was building more than a company. I was building proof that my father had been wrong about me, wrong about women in business, and wrong about the future of furniture craftsmanship. Everest Holdings began with a simple but revolutionary concept: luxury furniture that combined traditional craftsmanship with sustainable materials and modern design principles. While established companies like my family's remained stuck in outdated practices, I saw an opportunity to create something genuinely new that still honored the artistry I had grown up admiring. My business strategy focused on 3 core principles. First, sustainability would be genuine, not a marketing gimmick. We sourced wood only from certified renewable forests, used water-based finishes without harmful chemicals, and designed pieces to last generations rather than following disposable trends. Second, we would merge handcrafted techniques with technology, using advanced design software and precision machinery for consistency, while preserving the human touch for details that machines could not replicate. Third, we would tell authentic stories about our pieces, connecting customers to the origins of their furniture from forest to finishing. This approach resonated particularly with affluent millennials and socially conscious professionals who wanted their purchases to reflect their values. Our first collection, aptly named Legacy Renewed, featured sleek dining tables made from reclaimed oak with subtle modern lines that would complement both traditional and contemporary homes. The collection sold out within 3 months, generating buzz in design circles and attracting attention from high-end retailers. Protecting my identity became increasingly important as Everest gained momentum. I created a carefully constructed corporate persona, hiring a seasoned industry veteran named Richard Collins to serve as the public face of the company. Richard was semi-retired, respected in the industry, and happy to attend events and meetings on behalf of the mysterious founder who preferred to remain in the background. Legal documents listed shell companies and trusts as owners, with only my trusted attorney knowing the full truth. This anonymity was not merely about avoiding my father discovering my success. It served a strategic purpose, allowing our furniture to be judged on its merits rather than being dismissed as the pet project of a young woman. In meetings conducted via conference calls, I found clients and partners took my ideas more seriously when they were not distracted by my age or gender. It was an unfortunate reality of the industry, but one I used to my advantage. With our early success, I began recruiting a team of like-minded innovators. I poached a brilliant production manager from a major manufacturer, hired young designers from top schools who were being overlooked by established firms, and brought in artisans who were frustrated by the lack of creativity in their current positions. I made sure to create the kind of inclusive, collaborative environment I had always wished for at Reed Artisan Furnishings. Sandra Patel joined as our head of design, bringing experience from luxury brands, along with fresh perspectives on combining traditional joinery with modern aesthetics. Marcus Jefferson, a third-generation woodworker, became our workshop director, training our growing team in techniques passed down through his family. Zoe Williams, with her Harvard MBA and tech background, led our digital strategy and operations. Together, we expanded beyond individual pieces to full collection concepts. The Urban Heirloom line featured space-saving solutions for luxury city apartments. Watershed used woods salvaged from riverbeds, creating unique grain patterns with stories of environmental reclamation. Each launch generated more attention with features in Architectural Digest, Elle Decor, and recognition at the International Contemporary Furniture Fair. By our third year, Everest Holdings had grown from a small startup to a formidable presence in the high-end furniture market. We opened our first showroom in Soho, an airy, light-filled space that perfectly showcased our aesthetic. Revenue reached $15 million with profit margins exceeding industry averages thanks to our direct-to-consumer approach and premium positioning. Throughout this growth, I kept tabs on Reed Artisan Furnishings from afar. Industry newsletters and casual conversations with former connections revealed troubling trends. My father had rejected not just me, but any form of innovation. While competitors embraced e-commerce and sustainability, Reed remained stubbornly analog. Their once exclusive designs now appeared dated compared to more contemporary offerings. Sales were declining, and rumors circulated about cash flow problems. One evening, scrolling through furniture industry news, I saw an article that made my heart sink: Historic Furniture Maker Reed, Artisan Facing Uncertain Future. The piece detailed declining orders, the closing of their West Coast showroom, and speculation about the company seeking buyers. There was a quote from my father: uncharacteristically defensive, Reed Furnishings remains committed to quality and tradition. Market fluctuations are temporary. I knew better. The market had not fluctuated, it had evolved exactly as I had predicted 5 years earlier. My father's stubborn refusal to adapt was driving our family legacy toward extinction. The satisfaction I might have felt at being proven right was overshadowed by genuine grief. Despite everything, I still loved the company my grandfather had built. The thought of it disappearing, of skilled craftsmen losing their jobs and beautiful techniques being lost, was heartbreaking. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. If my father would not save Reed Artisan Furnishings, perhaps I could. Not as Morgan Reed, the rejected daughter, but as Everest Holdings, the innovative furniture company making waves in the industry. I called an emergency meeting with my executive team the next morning. I need to be completely honest with you about something I have kept secret. I began before revealing my background and connection to Reed. I explained my desire to acquire the company, preserve its valuable elements, and integrate them into our operations. My team was initially shocked but quickly supportive. "This makes perfect sense," Sandra said. The traditional craftsmanship skills at Reed would complement our modern approach perfectly. Zoe ran preliminary numbers. From a business perspective, this acquisition could accelerate our growth in the heritage market while saving a significant portion of what they have built. With my team behind me, I instructed our attorneys to approach Reed Artisan Furnishings through multiple layers of corporate entities, ensuring my identity remained concealed. We submitted an initial offer of $40 million, knowing it would be rejected, but establishing our serious interest. As expected, my father responded with indignation at what he considered a lowball offer for his precious company. Over the next 3 months, we engaged in careful negotiations, gradually increasing our offer while conducting thorough due diligence. What we discovered confirmed my fears the company was in far worse shape than publicly acknowledged. Debt had accumulated, key artisans were leaving, and several major accounts had recently been lost to more progressive competitors. Finally, we reached an agreement: $50 million for complete acquisition, a figure that significantly overvalued the company, but would ensure my father could not refuse. The deal was set to close after Thanksgiving, allowing time for final details to be arranged. My father had no idea that the company poised to acquire his life's work was founded and run by the daughter he had deemed unworthy of a place in it. With the pieces in place, I made one more decision after 5 years of absence. It was time to go home for Thanksgiving. Not to gloat or reveal my hand prematurely, but to make peace with my past before embarking on this new chapter. I had no idea just how dramatically that Thanksgiving dinner would unfold. The drive to my childhood home in Vermont felt surreal after 5 years away. Autumn had always been spectacular in this part of New England, with maple trees blazing orange and red against the evergreens. But now the familiar scenery seemed to belong to another life entirely. I had left as a heartbroken daughter with something to prove. I was returning as the CEO of a thriving company about to acquire my family's business, though they did not yet know the buyer's true identity. I parked my rented car in the circular driveway of the grand colonial home my parents had purchased when I was 10, a status symbol befitting the owner of Reed Artisan Furnishings. The house looked exactly the same, meticulously maintained, with classic Reed furniture visible through the windows. Taking a deep breath, I gathered my overnight bag and the expensive bottle of wine I had brought as a gift, then walked to the front door. My mother answered, her eyes widening in surprise, despite the fact that I had called ahead to accept the Thanksgiving invitation. "Morgan," she breathed, pulling me into a tight embrace that conveyed years of unspoken emotion. "You are really here." "Hi, Mom," I said, returning her hug and noticing the new strands of gray in her blonde hair. "It has been too long." She ushered me inside, taking my coat and bag with the practiced grace of a perpetual hostess. "Everyone is in the living room. Your father is. Well, he has been under a lot of pressure lately with the business. Just so you know." The warning was unnecessary. I knew exactly what pressure he was under, having seen the company financials during our due diligence process. What surprised me was the hint that my mother might be more aware of the business situation than she had ever let on before. Walking into the living room felt like stepping into a time capsule. My father sat in his usual leather armchair, looking older and more tired than I remembered. Travis lounged on the sofa, a tumbler of scotch in hand, while Danielle examined her manicure with studied boredom. All three looked up as I entered, their expressions ranging from shock to forced politeness. "Morgan," my father said, standing stiffly. He made no move to embrace me, offering instead a formal handshake. "We were not certain you would actually come." "I said I would," I replied, simply accepting his handshake and noticing how his once powerful grip had weakened. "It has been too long since I was home." Travis raised his glass in mock salute. "The prodigal daughter returns. What brought you back?" Finally ready to admit the real world was too much. I smiled, thinking of my $30 million company and executive office overlooking Manhattan. "Actually, things have been going quite well in New York. I have a successful career in furniture design consulting." The partial truth came easily, a cover story I had prepared carefully. Danielle finally looked up from her nails. "Consulting, is that what they call it when you help people shop at IKEA?" My mother intervened before I could respond. "Dinner is almost ready. Shall we move to the dining room? I have used the good china since we are all together again." The dining room, like the rest of the house, was a showcase for Reed craftsmanship. The massive mahogany table had been one of my grandfather's masterpieces designed to last for generations. Now it was set with fine china crystal glasses and silver candelabras, creating an almost theatrical setting for what was about to unfold. We took our usual seats, habits reasserting themselves, despite the years apart. My father at the head, mother at the foot, siblings and I along the sides. The traditional Thanksgiving spread was impressive. A perfectly roasted turkey cranberry sauce made from local berries, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, and my mother's famous pumpkin pie waiting on the sideboard. As we began passing dishes, the conversation remained superficial. My mother asked polite questions about my apartment, my friends, carefully avoiding any mention of my work. Travis boasted about a recent golf trip to Scotland. Danielle described her new relationship with a hedge fund manager named Blake. My father remained unusually quiet, picking at his food and occasionally glancing at his watch. It was during the lull after the main course, as my mother stood to clear plates before dessert, that my father cleared his throat. "Since we are all here, there is something I need to tell you." The gravity in his voice caused my mother to slowly sink back into her chair. Travis and Danielle exchanged glances, suddenly alert. My father placed both hands flat on the table, a gesture I recognized from childhood announcements. "I have been working with some difficult realities regarding the company," he began, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "The market has not been kind to traditional businesses like ours. Costs have risen, sales have declined, and several poor investments have left us in a precarious position." He paused, seeming to age before our eyes. "I have tried everything to turn things around. Loans, restructuring, even selling the vacation property in Maine. Nothing has been enough." My mother reached for her water glass, her hand visibly trembling. "The bottom line is this." My father continued, his voice hardening with what I recognized as his shield against vulnerability. "We are selling Reed Artisan Furnishings." The statement hung in the air like a thunderclap. Even though I knew this was coming, hearing him say the words aloud sent a shock through me. "Selling," my mother whispered. "Walter, you always said the company would never leave the family." He could not meet her eyes. "There is no choice, Elaine. The alternative is bankruptcy within 6 months." Travis leaned forward. "So we sell and distribute the proceeds. What is the number, Dad? What are we looking at?" My father's jaw tightened. "That is the other part I need to explain. The sale will cover our debts and obligations to employees. There will be nothing left to distribute to the family." "Nothing." Danielle's voice rose sharply. "How is that possible? The company has been valued at over $70 million for years." "That valuation is outdated," my father replied bitterly. "The brand has depreciated significantly. The real estate alone has mortgages against it. The remaining value mostly consists of equipment and inventory that the buyer specifically wants." I watched this unfold with a strange sense of detachment, knowing far more about the company's finances than anyone else at the table. The $50 million purchase price was indeed mostly going toward debt repayment and obligations, though my father was understating the remaining value somewhat. Travis slammed his hand on the table, causing the silverware to jump. "This is unacceptable. You promised that company would be my inheritance." My father's face reddened. "You think I wanted this? Everything I have worked for gone. But the deal is done. The papers are drawn up." "Who?" My mother's quiet question cut through the brewing argument. "Who is buying the company?" My father straightened slightly, a hint of pride returning. "A newer company that has been making waves in the industry. Everest Holdings. They are paying $50 million, which is more than fair given our situation. Their CEO has promised to retain most of the staff and continue some of our signature lines." I could not help the small smile that formed on my lips. "Dad, who exactly is behind Everest Holdings? Have you met their CEO?" He shook his head. "They operate very privately. All negotiations were conducted through representatives and attorneys. But they are legitimate, well-funded, and surprisingly respectful of our legacy." The moment had arrived. With every eye at the table on me, I took a sip of wine and set down my glass deliberately. "I know exactly who is behind Everest Holdings." My father frowned. "How could you possibly know that?" I met his gaze directly, 5 years of suppressed emotion rising to the surface. "Because I am Everest Holdings. I founded it, I built it, and now I am buying Reed Artisan Furnishings." The silence that followed was absolute. My father's face drained of color. Travis's mouth hung open in mid-protest. Danielle froze with her wine glass halfway to her lips. Only my mother moved her hands slowly, rising to cover her mouth as the implications sank in. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked loudly in the silence, marking the seconds of their shock and my vindication. "That is impossible," my father finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Everest Holdings is a multi-million-dollar company with major presence in New York and Chicago." "Yes," I replied calmly. "We opened our Los Angeles showroom last month. The Miami location launches in January." Travis recovered from his shock, his face contorting with anger. "You are lying. There is no way you built a company capable of this acquisition. Not in 5 years, not on your own." I reached for my handbag hanging on the chair beside me and removed a leather portfolio. "I anticipated your disbelief," I said, sliding several documents across the table. "Here is the complete corporate structure of Everest Holdings showing me as founder and CEO. Here are press clippings from Architectural Digest and Forbes featuring our collections and growth." And here I pushed forward. The final document is a letter from our attorneys, confirming my authorization to discuss the acquisition directly with you, superseding the previous confidentiality agreements. My father stared at the papers without touching them as if they might burn his fingers. Danielle snatched them up instead, her eyes widening as she flipped through the pages. $15 million in revenue last year, she read aloud, incredulous. Projected to exceed $22 million this year. Featured in Architectural Digest's Designers to Watch. Her voice trailed off as she continued reading. My mother reached for one of the magazine clippings, studying a photo of our Soho showroom. "This is your design work. These pieces are extraordinary, Morgan." "This is absurd," my father suddenly declared, finding his voice. "If this is true, you have been plotting behind our backs for years. You deliberately concealed your identity to manipulate this sale." "I founded Everest to prove I could succeed in this industry on my own merits," I countered. "The acquisition opportunity only arose when I learned how badly the family business was struggling. I could have let it fail completely or be sold off in pieces. Instead, I chose to preserve it." Travis stood so abruptly. His chair toppled backward. "You self-righteous little schemer. You did this out of spite to humiliate Dad and take what should have been mine." "What exactly should have been yours, Travis?" I asked, remaining seated. "A company you never truly cared about. Skills you never bothered to learn. You wanted the prestige of being CEO without doing any of the work that position requires." His face flushed dark red. "You have no right to judge me. I was there while you ran off to play entrepreneur." "I ran off because I was told explicitly that I would never have a meaningful role in the company because I am a woman," I replied, my composure beginning to crack. "I offered my education, my skills, my passion, and was dismissed without consideration. So, yes, I left and built something of my own." Danielle, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly looked up from the documents. "How much?" she asked. "How much profit is left after the debts are paid?" Of course, that would be her first question. "Approximately $8 million, I answered honestly. Her eyes narrowed calculatingly. "So you will distribute that amount to the family?" The single word hung in the air between us. "What do you mean, no?" she demanded. "You cannot just take our family company and give us nothing." "The company stopped being a family enterprise the moment I was excluded from it," I said. "The remaining value after debt represents the investment capital Everest is committing to revitalize the brand and operations." My father pushed away from the table, standing to his full height. "This is theft pure and simple. You manipulated the situation, concealed your identity, and now intend to steal what remains of our family legacy." Steal. The word ignited something inside me. "Like you stole years of my life preparing for a role you never intended to let me have. Like you stole my grandfather's inclusive vision and replaced it with your outdated prejudices. I offered you my business plan 5 years ago, a plan that would have prevented this entire situation, and you laughed me out of the room." "That plan was unrealistic based on academic theories rather than real-world experience," he shot back. "Every element of that plan is now implemented at Everest, generating the profits that allow me to save your company," I countered. Everything I proposed for Reed, I accomplished elsewhere, proving every dismissive word you said about me wrong. Travis stepped toward me aggressively. You will not get away with this. We can challenge the sale claim fraud, expose your deception to the board. There is no deception in the legal documents, I replied steadily. And the board unanimously approved the sale 2 weeks ago, recognizing it as the only viable alternative to bankruptcy. Your signature is on those approvals, Travis, though I doubt you bothered to read them before signing. The truth of this statement was evident in his momentary hesitation. As a nominal board member, Travis had indeed rubber-stamped whatever my father put in front of him for years. This is not about revenge, I continued, softening my tone slightly. This is about preserving what is valuable about Reed Artisan Furnishings while discarding what was holding it back. The craftsmanship, the quality, the heritage, those are worth saving. The outdated management, the resistance to innovation, the gender bias, those needed to go. My father collapsed back into his chair, suddenly looking every day of his 65 years. So you will dismantle everything I built, replace it with your modern notions, and erase my contributions entirely. For the first time, I saw genuine fear beneath his anger, the terror of irrelevance that had likely driven his resistance to change all along. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of compassion. No, I said more gently. That was never my intention. What I plan to do is integrate the best of Reed traditions with the innovation of Everest. The master craftsman will remain. The signature designs will continue alongside new collections. The Reed name will still be prominently featured. Pretty words to disguise a hostile takeover, he muttered. Before I could respond, my mother spoke up, her voice stronger than I had heard in years. Walter, stop this. Look at these designs. She pushed one of the magazine spreads toward him. Look at what our daughter has created. These pieces honor everything your father taught while moving forward in ways he would have embraced. You are taking her side, he asked incredulously. I am acknowledging reality, she replied. The company was failing. You know this. You have barely slept in months, worrying about it. Morgan has found a way to save what matters most. Is your pride worth losing everything completely? The room fell silent again as my father stared at the magazine, finally allowing himself to actually see my work. I watched emotions war across his face, pride and resentment, battling with grudging recognition. Travis was not so reflective. This is ridiculous. She manipulated this entire situation. She deliberately waited until we were desperate to swoop in and take over. Actually, I corrected him. I made the offer as soon as I learned the company was in trouble. If I had waited another 6 months, there would have been nothing left to save. The $50 million offer is significantly above market value, specifically to ensure all employees receive fair compensation and no one loses their pension. My father's head snapped up. You overpaid deliberately. I paid what I believe the company is worth when properly managed, I clarified. The current market valuation reflects years of mismanagement, not the true value of the brand craftspeople and legacy. The implication was clear, and it hit its mark. My father flinched visibly at the assessment of his leadership. Unable to face the truth unfolding at the table, I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Vermont landscape I had grown up with. The workshop was visible in the distance, its lights still on despite the holiday, some dedicated craftsmen likely working to fulfill orders despite the uncertainty hanging over their futures. I need some air, I said quietly, moving toward the French doors leading to the garden. The emotional weight of the confrontation had suddenly become overwhelming. Without waiting for a response, I stepped outside into the crisp November evening, leaving my family to process what had just been revealed. The garden behind my childhood home had always been my refuge. Now, standing among the dormant rose bushes my mother tended so carefully, I took deep breaths of the cold air, watching them form clouds in the moonlight. The temperature had dropped since sunset, but I welcomed the chill against my flushed skin. From this vantage point, I could see the workshop in the valley below its windows, glowing warmly in the darkness. My grandfather had built that structure with his own hands, expanding it over decades as the business grew. I remembered him walking me through it as a child, introducing me to each craftsman by name, explaining their specialties and techniques. This is my granddaughter Morgan, he would say proudly. She has the eye. One day she might design pieces you will build. He had never doubted my potential because of my gender. That limitation had come solely from my father, who perhaps had never truly understood the soul of the business he inherited. I heard the French doors open behind me and tensed, expecting Travis's continued accusations or Danielle's demands. Instead, my father's voice broke the silence. "Your grandfather would have been proud of what you have built." I turned slowly to face him, surprised by both his words and the defeat in his posture. He stood with hands thrust into his pockets, shoulders hunched against the cold, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. "He encouraged me when no one else did," I replied carefully. "He saw possibility where you saw limitation." My father nodded slowly, moving to stand beside me, both of us, now looking down at the workshop. Harold was always more progressive than me. We argued about it often. He wanted to bring in new techniques, expand into contemporary designs. I resisted, insisted on keeping things exactly as they had always been. The admission surprised me. I had never heard him acknowledge any disagreement with my revered grandfather. "Why?" I asked, simply. He was quiet for so long, I thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost its usual authoritative tone. "Fear," he said the word, seeming to cost him greatly. "I was afraid of failing, of being the reed who ruined what generations had built. Your grandfather had natural talent. He could look at a piece of wood and see what it should become. I never had that gift. What I had was discipline and determination. I learned the technical aspects perfectly, but I never had the vision he did." He paused, exhaling heavily. "Or, the vision you inherited from him." The confession hung between us, reshaping everything I thought I understood about my father. "So you clung to tradition because it was safe," I suggested gently. "Safe, predictable, proven," he agreed. "When you presented your ideas 5 years ago, all I could see was risk. Untested concepts that might fail spectacularly. And if they failed under a woman's leadership, a daughter's leadership, the industry would never let me forget it. So rather than risk failure, you guaranteed it by refusing to adapt at all." I observed the irony, striking me now that I understood his motivation. He winced, but nodded. "It seems that way in retrospect." Each small decline seemed temporary. Each setback something we could weather if we just held firm to what we knew. By the time I recognized the pattern, we were too deeply committed to the old ways to change course without outside capital. We stood in silence for several moments, the revelation settling between us, like the first light snow of winter, transforming the landscape of our relationship. "I did not create Everest to spite you," I finally said. "I created it to prove to myself that my vision had value, that my ideas were sound. The acquisition was not planned from the beginning." "But you kept your identity secret during the negotiations," he pointed out, a hint of his earlier accusation returning. "Yes," I acknowledged. "Would you have accepted the offer if you had known it came from me?" His reluctant headshake answered more honestly than words could have. "I wanted to save what matters most about Reed Artisan Furnishings," I continued. "The craftsmanship, the quality, the people whose livelihoods depend on it, including yours and Mom's retirement security, which I know has been at risk." He looked at me sharply. "You saw the pension fund reports." "I saw everything during due diligence," I confirmed, "including how you personally guaranteed loans to ensure the employees would be paid even as the company struggled. Whatever else has happened between us, I know you care about the people who built this company with you." Something in his expression softened at this recognition. They deserved better than what I could give them in the end. "They will have better going forward," I assured him. "No one will lose their job in this transition unless they choose to leave. Master craftsmen will be paired with apprentices to ensure their knowledge continues. The Reed name and legacy will be honored." He turned to face me fully now. "And what role do you envision for me in this new iteration of the company I spent my life building?" It was the question I had anticipated and prepared for. "That depends on what you want, Dad. If you wish to retire completely, the sale proceeds ensure you and Mom will be comfortable. If you want to remain involved, I would welcome your expertise in a senior advisory capacity, focusing on the traditional craftsmanship that has always been the heart of Reed Furniture." "And Travis Danielle?" he asked. "Travis has never truly wanted the responsibility of running the company," I said honestly. "He wanted the title and prestige without the work. If he wants a role that matches his actual skills and interests, we can discuss possibilities. As for Danielle, the same applies, but neither will be handed positions they have not earned. He nodded slowly, seeming to accept the fairness of this approach. And your mother? Mom has always had excellent taste and an eye for what customers truly want, I said. If she is interested, I would value her input on design, aesthetics, and customer experience. Her voice deserves to be heard, after all these years. My father looked back toward the house where light spilled from the dining room windows. She knew, that the company was in trouble. She tried to talk to me about it several times over the past few years. I dismissed her concerns, told her it was not her area of expertise. He sighed heavily. Another voice I should have listened to. This revelation about my mother surprised me. She had always seemed so removed from the business, so accepting of her limited role. Perhaps there was more complexity to my parents' relationship than I had recognized. It is not too late to start listening, I suggested. To her, to me, to the changing market. Perhaps not, he conceded. Then, with visible effort, he straightened his shoulders and extended his hand to me formally. Congratulations on building Everest Holdings, Morgan. It is an impressive achievement by any standard. I looked at his outstretched hand, thinking of all the times I had sought his approval, his recognition. Instead of shaking it, I stepped forward and embraced him. After a moment of surprise, his arms came around me stiffly, then, with increasing warmth. Thank you, I said simply. That acknowledgement means more than you know. When we separated, both of us were blinking back unexpected emotion. By unspoken agreement, we turned back toward the house. Shall we go inside and discuss what happens next, I suggested. The whole family should be part of this conversation. He nodded, and we walked back to the French doors together. Before opening them, he paused. Your grandfather told me once that the future of the company would come through you. I thought he was being sentimental because you were his only granddaughter. I should have recognized he saw something in you that I was too blind to see. The simple acknowledgement healed something deep within me that I had not realized was still so raw. Thank you for telling me that. Inside, we found my mother, Travis, and Danielle still at the table, surrounded by the documents I had brought. They looked up as we entered, tension evident in their postures. Morgan and I have had a productive conversation, my father announced, his voice carrying an authority now tempered with new humility. It is clear that Everest Holdings acquiring Reed Artisan Furnishings is the best outcome possible given the circumstances. The question now is how we move forward as a family. Travis started to protest, but my father silenced him with a raised hand. The business was failing under our management, Travis. That is the reality we must accept before anything else. My mother's eyes moved between my father and me, cautious hope, replacing her earlier distress. Does this mean we are finding a way to work together? It means we are discussing possibilities, I clarified, resuming my seat at the table. I have some specific ideas about how each of you might contribute to the merged company if you are interested. Over the next 2 hours, we talked more openly than we had in years, perhaps ever. There were still flashes of resentment, moments of tension, but beneath it all ran a current of reluctant respect and cautious reconciliation. Travis eventually admitted he had always preferred sales to management and might be happier in a role that played to those strengths. Danielle revealed an interest in event planning that could translate to showcase events for the company. My mother most surprisingly produced a portfolio of design sketches she had been creating secretly for years. By the time we finally moved to the living room for coffee and my mother's pumpkin pie, the foundation had been laid for a new chapter, not just for the business, but for our family. It was tentative and fragile, but it was a beginning. 1 year has passed since that transformative Thanksgiving dinner. Today, Read by Everest stands as a testament to what can happen when tradition and innovation work in harmony rather than opposition. The workshop in Vermont still produces the handcrafted masterpieces that made the Reed name legendary, but now they sit alongside contemporary pieces that speak to a new generation of customers who value both heritage and sustainability. The transition was not without challenges. The first 3 months involved intensive reorganization, with some difficult conversations and occasional setbacks. Change is never easy, especially for a company set in its ways for decades. Yet the results have exceeded even my most optimistic projections. Revenue has increased by 35%, our workforce has grown by 20 employees, and waiting lists for our signature pieces extend 6 months. More meaningful than these business metrics are the changes within my family. My father, after initially struggling to accept his new advisory role, has found unexpected satisfaction in being freed from management responsibilities to focus on craftsmanship. He spends 3 days a week in the workshop mentoring young artisans and developing a new masterclass series that documents traditional techniques for future generations. I often find him in deep conversation with apprentices explaining the properties of different wood species or demonstrating joinery methods with a patience I rarely saw when I was young. "I should have been teaching you like this," he told me recently as we watched a furniture piece take shape under his guidance. I was so focused on protecting what we had that I never considered how much more we could create together. Travis found his place in the company after some soul searching. He now leads our client relations department, where his natural charm and social connections serve a genuine purpose. Free from the pressure of overall leadership that never suited him, he has flourished in a role that plays to his strengths. We have reached a truce that has gradually warmed into something approaching real sibling respect. Danielle surprised everyone by revealing a talent for event design. She now oversees our showroom launches and special exhibitions, bringing her flair for drama and presentation to create memorable experiences for our clients. Her social media savvy has helped introduce our brand to influential circles that were previously inaccessible. We are not close friends, but we have found a professional relationship that works for both of us. Perhaps the most remarkable transformation has been my mother's. Freed from decades of self-imposed silence, she now leads our design team's customer experience division. Her elegant taste and intuitive understanding of how furniture functions in real homes has proven invaluable. At 64, she has discovered a professional identity entirely, her own separate from being Walter Reed's wife. The confidence this has given her extends beyond work into all aspects of her life. My parents' relationship has evolved into a more equal partnership that seems to have revitalized them both. As for me, merging Everest and Reed has been the most challenging and rewarding chapter of my career. Leading a company that bridges generations that honors the past while embracing the future has taught me more about business and human nature than any degree program could. There are days when the weight of responsibility feels overwhelming, when conflicting priorities seem impossible to reconcile. But there are many more days when I walk through our workshop seeing artisans from age 20 to 70 working side by side and feel profound gratitude for this unlikely second chance. The journey from rejection to redemption has taught me lessons I carry with me every day. I learned that sometimes you must leave what you love to save it. That success can be the most powerful response to those who underestimate you. That holding on to anger, however justified, ultimately limits your own potential more than it punishes those who wronged you. Most importantly, I learned that true strength lies not in refusing to bend, but in knowing when flexibility preserves what matters most. My father thought rigidity was strength, that change meant weakness. In reality, his inflexibility nearly destroyed everything he sought to protect. By contrast, my willingness to adapt to integrate old and new preserved the heart of Reed Artisan Furnishings while allowing it to evolve. This does not mean the past is forgotten. There are still moments when a dismissive comment or unconscious slight triggers memories of that painful rejection 5 years ago. The difference is that now I can see those wounds as part of the path that led me here, to a place my grandfather somehow foresaw when he told my father that the future would come through me. I often think about what my life might have been if my father had welcomed my ideas from the beginning. Would I have developed the same resilience, the same determination if success had come easily? Would Everest Holdings exist at all? Would the innovations we have now implemented have emerged without the freedom to experiment that my independent company provided? It is impossible to know, but I suspect everything unfolded exactly as it needed to. Tonight our family will gather again for Thanksgiving dinner. The table will be set with my mother's fine china, but the table itself will be new, a piece I designed that combines my grandfather's joinery techniques with sustainable materials and contemporary lines. It perfectly symbolizes what we have built together, honoring tradition while embracing progress. As I look toward the future, I feel neither triumph nor lingering resentment, but rather a peaceful certainty that the painful rejection that once defined me has been transformed into something valuable for everyone involved. The company is stronger, the family is healing, and I have become a leader who understands both innovation and heritage change and continuity. If you are facing rejection in your own life, especially from those whose approval you most desire, know that it does not define your worth or limit your potential. Sometimes the most painful no opens the door to possibilities you never would have discovered otherwise. Build your own Everest, not out of spite but out of self-belief. And remember that true victory is not proving others wrong, but creating something so undeniably right that it transforms the very relationship that caused your pain. Have you ever experienced rejection that later turned out to be a blessing in disguise? Or found yourself having to prove your worth to people who should have believed in you from the start? Share your story in the comments below. And if this journey of overcoming doubt and creating success on your own terms resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need this message today. Remember, sometimes the most powerful redemption story is the one you write yourself. Thank you for listening to my story, and may your own challenges become the foundation of your greatest strengths.